Okay, just look at your hand. Go on. It seems like one solid thing, doesn't it? But here's the wild part. It's not. It's a team, a cooperative of trillions of individual cells, all working together in perfect harmony. I mean, that number is so big, it's almost meaningless. So the real question, the one we're going to tackle, is this. How on earth did life make that incredible jump from being just one lonely cell to becoming, well, you?
I mean, think about that journey for a second. From a single-celled organism floating around in some ancient ocean to, well, to the person who's hearing my voice right now. It's honestly one of the greatest stories in all of evolution. And this isn't just some dusty old history lesson either. Nope, this is the story of the blueprint that is actively building and rebuilding you right now, every single day.
All right, so first things first, let's get one thing straight. Becoming multicellular isn't as simple as a bunch of cells just deciding to, hang out together. Take Volvox, for example. You might remember that little green algae from high school biology. It's technically a colony, sure, but each cell is pretty much doing its own thing, fending for itself. A truly multicellular organism, that's a whole different ballgame. It's an integrated, cooperative society.
Yeah, and to make that huge leap, evolution basically had to become an engineer. It had to solve a whole series of massive engineering problems. It had to figure out a completely new set of rules, or maybe more accurately, learn how to cleverly bend the old ones to build these bigger, more complex bodies. And the very first challenge it ran into, it's one of pure, simple physics.
And let me tell you, this first hurdle is a doozy. It's all about simple math and physics. See, as life started trying to get bigger, its own shape, its own geometry, started to work against it. And this is what we call the surface area problem.
Okay, let's break this down. A cell's surface is its lifeline, right? It's the front door, the windows, the exhaust pipe. It's how it breathes, eats, and takes out the trash. The volume, on the other hand, is everything inside. The factory, the workers, all the stuff that needs those resources. So for a cell to stay alive, it absolutely has to have enough surface area to support all the action happening inside.
So let's make this super clear with an example. Imagine we have 8 little single-celled organisms, and we'll just picture them as these small cubes. Each one is doing great. It has plenty of surface area for its small volume, so getting nutrients in and waste out is a breeze. Now, if we do the math, their total volume is 8 units, and their total surface area is 48 units. Got it? Okay.
But now, watch what happens when we just stick them all together into one big cube. The total volume? It's still 8. The amount of stuff is exactly the same. But the surface area, it absolutely plummets down to just 24. We've literally lost half of our connection to the outside world, just because all those surfaces that used to be on the outside are now stuck on the inside, blocked off.
And this right here, this shows you the central problem, the big trade-off. Now, having less surface area is actually great if you're, say, a warm-blooded animal, like us, trying to stay warm. But it is an absolute disaster if you're trying to get oxygen and food to all those cells buried deep in the middle. So life's first huge engineering win, figuring out how to build transport systems, like veins and arteries, to get resources deep inside the body.
Okay, so challenge number 1 is down, but once you solve the size problem, you immediately hit the next level. And this one's all about mechanics. How do you get the cells to physically stick together to actually build a body? And as we're about to see, different branches on the tree of life came up with totally different solutions. So you've got plants and fungi over on one side. They went for the brick and mortar approach. They have these stiff cell walls, and they basically just cement them together. It works, it's super strong, super stable. But it's also permanent. The cells are locked in place. Animal cells, on the other hand, they took a completely different, much riskier path. See, our distant ancestors, they lost those rigid cell walls. Now, that was a huge risk. It made them really vulnerable. I mean, an animal cell in fresh water will literally swell up with water and pop. But, and this is a huge but, it was also a revolutionary opportunity. It was a total game changer. Without those walls in the way, cells could suddenly make direct contact. They could touch, they could feel, they could communicate in all these new dynamic ways. So if there's no cell wall, where did the glue to stick all these cells together come from? Well, this is where evolution gets really clever. It turns out our single-celled ancestors already had the right proteins on their surfaces. They just used them for other jobs, like grabbing food or sticking to rocks or sensing what's going on around them. Evolution didn't have to invent some new cell glue from scratch. It just took this ancient toolkit and repurposed it for a brand new job, sticking cells to each other.
And if you want to know just how critical these connections are, well, let's talk about cancer. For a tumor to metastasize, to spread, a cancer cell has to do two things. First, it stops making the proteins that keep it connected to its neighbors. Then it literally dissolves the stuff holding it in place. It's actively, deliberately severing its ties to the community so it can break free and escape. It's the ultimate act of cellular betrayal. Okay, so let's recap. Life has figured out how to get bigger, and it's figured out how to stick together. But a simple clump of connected cells is not an organism, any more than a pile of bricks is a house. The final, and by far the most complex challenge, is teamwork. How do you get all those trillions of cells to actually cooperate and work together? And this idea of teamwork really comes down to two main pillars. First, you need specialization, a division of labor where different cells take on different jobs. You've got your construction workers, your security guards, your power plant operators. And second, you need communication, so all of these specialized teams can coordinate what they're doing. And you can actually see this specialization getting more and more complex as you move through the animal kingdom. You start with something like Volvox, where pretty much every cell is its own boss. Then you move to a simple sponge, and suddenly you start to see teams of cells with different jobs, some for feeding, others for structure. Take another step up to something like a hydra, and now you have organized layers of tissue, where whole sheets of cells are dedicated to one function. And that is the very beginning of the tissues inside your own body. But here's the thing. Having all these specialists is totally useless if they can't talk to each other. And cells communicate using chemical signals. There are a few different ways they do this. You've got autocrine signaling, which is basically a cell talking to itself. Think of it like leaving yourself a post-it note. Then there's paracrine, which is local. That's like yelling over the fence to your neighbors. And then you have endocrine signaling, which is the long-distance stuff, using hormones in the bloodstream like a national broadcast on the radio. And then there's the VIP channel, the super fast, super specific version called synaptic signaling. This is the system your nerves use. It's not a broadcast at all. It's a direct, private message. It's like a text from a nerve cell sent directly to one specific target, like a single muscle fiber, telling it exactly when to contract. It's all about speed and precision. So let's put all the pieces together now. When you combine the solutions to all these different challenges, solving the size problem, figuring out how to stick together, and then getting everyone to cooperate, what you end up with is the fundamental blueprint for all complex animal life. This is the recipe. But here's what I think is the most incredible part of this whole story. The genes for all this stuff, for sticking together, for communicating, for specializing, most of this genetic toolkit wasn't invented from scratch for multicellular life. It was already there in our single-celled ancestors. Evolution just took that existing machinery and repurposed it, refined it for a whole new set of jobs in this new multicellular world. So what gave vertebrates, things like us, an extra leg up? Well, something really weird happened early in our history. Our entire genome, our entire genetic code, got duplicated. And then it happened again. So this means that for a lot of genes where an invertebrate has one copy, we have 4. This basically gave evolution a massive genetic sandbox to play in, full of spare parts to tinker with, which allowed for way more complexity. So when you boil it all down, what really makes an animal an animal? It's these 3 key innovations all built on top of that multicellular foundation. You've got muscles for movement, nerves for that lightning-fast control, and these incredibly complex signaling systems to coordinate the whole show. It really is an extraordinary feat of biological engineering, isn't it? We're talking about trillions of individual cells, all descended from a single fertilized egg, all cooperating so perfectly that they create a single conscious being, you. The entire system, your entire existence, is built on this ancient pact of cooperation. Which, of course, leads to one last very profound question. What happens when just one of those trillions of cells decides to break that pact and go rogue?